My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live and Twitter and YouTube. We're all over the place. And I did a little rearranging in here today. So my camera, I think, is a little bit off, but we'll make it, man. We'll manage it. It's a little higher than it was before. That's a long story. I'll tell you about that in the opening. But it's been a long 2 days. I have not slept since I woke up Thursday. No, wait. Today's Thursday. Since I woke up Wednesday. And I've been working on getting these edits done in my book. In the past 2 days, I've done 5 interviews. This is my 3rd show. I was on Hannity today. I was on Wilkow today. I've talked more than I've ever wanted to talk about transgender issues, and then I just finished it off with One American News a second ago. So we're going to close this out somewhat quickly today, but we're going to cover some of this stuff that we definitely need to be talking about. Let's go to the warning order. So let's see here. So we do have my #1 fan right now is watching, and he was really into this transgender conversation today. But that's Andrew Wilkow, and he promises to come on the show sometime in the near future. Hopefully when he's not at home chasing children. The guy breeds like nothing I've ever seen before. Some people like Ron Bellum, he grows a beard like that fast. It seems like Andrew Wilkow just has kids like that. I don't know. Maybe he can explain that when he comes on, how he does that. But anyway, he's very fertile, and he is... I can't wait to see what he has to say about that. But great guy. One of the best in the business. If you don't listen, if you don't have SiriusXM Patriot Channel 125, you're missing out a tremendous amount, if only for Andrew's show. And... oh no, he's watching the oh man, he just missed my entire shout out. Okay, hold on a second. I gotta show him this. Hold on one second here. I'm gonna have to give my whole nother shout out now. All right, I'll put Andrew down. But here's the thing: it was today was a very interesting. It was a very interesting day of debates today. I was on Andrew's show with Kristen Beck, and hold on, you'll have to watch the replay. So, yes, I am talking with Andrew Wilkow right now. So he can go watch I can't give the guy too many shout-outs, but I'll give him another one. He's a great guy. Today was a great he is killing me. It was a great show, and we had a great debate with Kristen Beck. In fact, they posted the entire interview on online. So I'm going to get that interview, and then I'll put it on Facebook. It's on Twitter, but I'll retweet it so you guys have it. And so and you'll be able to see what that was all about. So, but anyway, that was like one of 5 interviews that I've done. And listen, this is what people have to realize. I think we've talked about that enough on this show to where people have to realize that I'm not against anybody in the lifestyle that they want to have. I do believe in my heart that transgenders suffer from a psychological issue. I think that the psychology field has been tainted. Psychiatry the same way. They've been tainted by politics, and I think that it's hard to listen and trust what they have to say anymore. I mean, you have the years and years of good hardcore psychology where you had these people come in and make these groundbreaking studies happen. But now, like everything else, it's just sucked into politics to the point where you have to take what they say with a grain of salt. I mean, I think I told this the other day. Somebody that I know that's in the field of psychology said that they were getting emails from high-level people in the field saying that they had done a diagnosis of the president and that he had all these different disorders. And that person that I know was like, wrote back and was like, when did it happen in our practice, that in our field of study, that we can watch a TV and judge somebody's personality based on a persona that they put out on the television? And their response was like to go after this person. I mean, that's how tainted it's become in the field of psychology. So we can't really go on by what they say. And the whole point of what I've been discussing over the past couple days is that this really has less to do with the transgender individual and their quest to find who they are, and it has more to do with man, my arms at this angle look really small. I don't like that at all. I'm gonna have to fix that. Something about the way the angle is of this. But anyway, I'm laughing as though there's other people laughing. Hopefully other people think that's funny. But it's really not, the issue is really not the transgender individuals themselves. They have a whole life that they got to try to figure out. The problem that I've had and that I keep saying is that it's just not, the place for it's just not in the military. And really, I hope after this week, that's it. We're done. And I think it should just, we should start concentrating on helping those individuals find out what's going on in their life. I mean, they're Americans. I have no problem helping these people figure out where they need to be in life and not discriminating against them if they want to live a certain way. I don't believe that they should be able to use whatever bathroom that they want. I don't, listen, it is what it is. Society has to have certain rules. Same thing with the military in order for masses of people to survive. Regardless of what some of these social justice warriors feel, our country is a republic. It has a democratic portion of the government, but we're not a true democracy. And it's not, we have representation where we go out and we vote on people to represent us and make these laws. Unfortunately, we have a corrupt two-party system, and that's kind of screwed that whole pooch. So we have a big issue with that. However, this country is not built on what we were taught by the communist infested education system as we were growing up. It is not a country where you have 300 million people that feel this way and you have 100 people that feel this way, and the 300 million people have to do what the 100 people want. That's not the way this country works. Now, everybody has certain rights that are granted by God through the Constitution, and those 100 people are protected, and even one is protected from their constitutional rights being violated. However, when it comes to fairness in the military, that's not a right. When it comes to society having to be at ease with an alternative lifestyle that is a psychological disorder, that's not a right. A schizophrenic person doesn't have the right to make me feel calm and not uneasy around them, knowing full well that they're schizophrenic. That's not a right that they have. They have a right to say they have a medical issue. If I was a cop, even if they're schizophrenic, I can't handcuff them and then beat the crap out of them. That's a violation of their constitutional rights. I can't go and say to somebody, hey, we need a thing of blood, and they say, I'm not giving it to you, and then I just go take a needle and stick it in there if I'm a cop and get that vial of blood. That's violating their constitutional rights of search and seizure. So they're social justice warriors like to use all these terms like it's their rights, it's about equality, but the reality is our government and the way that this country was set up, it's not meant to be that way. It's not meant to be a system where if it's not fair, it has to be changed. It's just not the facts. It's not the way it is. And unfortunately, there's always going to be people who suffer from that. But fairness, it's a way of life. Listen, I grew up skinny, and I grew up tiny, and I grew up alone. I have no brothers. I have 3 sisters, and lived in the middle of nowhere, very, very poor up in northern Arkansas until we moved into the town of Yellville. And even then, I didn't have close friends, and I spent the majority of my life alone with animals. That's the truth. And my mom. I will say my mom and my sisters to a certain extent, but as kids grow older, they kind of do their own thing. But the reality was, I spent a lot of time in thought with God and hanging out with my animals and my mom, and it wasn't fair, but I made the most of it, and I did what I had to do. I'm not Rick Unger rich or Sean Hannity rich, but I have a quest and I have a goal, and I feel like I'm following God's direction wherever that may lead me. And I'm okay with that. So life isn't fair. And some people have flat feet and they can't go into the military because every person in the military has to be able to fight. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if you're a pencil pusher or if you're a SEAL. There's a reason why. I don't know about that flat foot thing. I don't have flat feet, so I don't really know the whole thing. But I know everybody always says, I have flat feet and I couldn't go in. If you have asthma, you can't go in. I know a girl that has a certain type of blood condition or heart condition. She can't go in. Even though she just carries the gene, is not necessarily somebody who is going to have the effects of that disease. I mean, on and on and on. There's all these different groups of people that can't go in. People who have altered their faces and done certain things, they can't go in. I mean, look, what a lot of these people don't realize is that there is this, and I'm going to have a special guest here in just a second. There's the Spartan lifestyle. There's a reason why you go in and you get your head shaved, and you get the same uniform, and you go through the same boot camp, and you get taught the same standard operating procedures. We call it the Spartan lifestyle, and that's what it is. But in order for people to understand that, you have to strip a person completely of their identity and of what they think they know and what they may actually know. You strip them of all that, and then you teach them the very specific set of skills. You take away their identity so that they are forced to become robotic in the way they work. That's the way you build a fighting force. You don't say, come on in, let your hair down, put your feet up. We're going to have that person massage your back, and everything's going to be... That's not the way it works. If you can't cut it physically, you're not going to be in there. If you can't cut it mentally, you're not going to be in there. And if you have a psychological disorder, you shouldn't be in there. I mean, it's because we can't allow these types of things to take effect once you're in battle. We don't need people killing themselves. We don't need women pretending that they're men, even if they identify as that and they come in and the system somehow allows them to be in there, and then either they can't pull the weight or they're just constantly, and this is a problem with people who have psychological disorders of body dysmorphia or of any type of other issue with identity, is that they are very, very edgy about how people talk about them and to them. And so that's a problem when you're in a battlefield, or you're in a foxhole, or you're in the same place with people over and over again, and you're having to take showers with all these individuals, and you're seeing something that is medically corrected, and it's, I don't know, the whole thing is just, it's like there's reverse psychology being played on all of us to make us feel as though we should feel bad for not accepting that. But I don't feel bad. And I don't think the rest of the people in the military should feel bad. And quite frankly, I don't think the rest of the people in the United States should subscribe to this nonsense. We got another Kennedy now that somehow has Joe Kennedy has wormed his way into politics. The kid looks like he needs a severe beat down with that big red hair. And we don't need that. See, that's what I'm always talking about, folks, when it comes to nepotism. The Kennedys are still serpentining their way in. They're like evil snakes. And we pay the price for this nepotism. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, so ultimately, it just comes down to this. And I really think we should stop talking about it and figure out, how we can help transgender individuals figure out the reality of what's going on. And, I mean, majority of these people that actually do kill themselves happens post-surgery. So it's not like the surgery is fixing anything because it's a psychological issue. You see, that's the problem. So why don't we do this real quick? I'm going to go to the A block. And, first, before I do this, before I bring on my special guest, I got to tell you this quick story. So maybe I shouldn't. This might be a little bit too much information, but I have my studio in my apartment. I wish this dog would sit down. Here he goes again. So I got a new rug in my apartment, but I hadn't put it in because it's a big rug, and I got to scoot the thing in, lift the furniture up, put it all in. So I go do all these interviews today. I go do Will Cow. I go do Hannity. And then One American News calls me, and they want me to come over. So, or not to come over, but to do a Skype interview with them. They're out of San Diego. So I rush home on my scooter from Hannity's show, from being on there for an hour with Rick. We did the whole 5 o'clock hour with Rick Unger. And I come here, and as I'm walking towards my apartment, I can smell it. The dog listen, he's a Jack Russell. It doesn't matter if he's 17. This dog is pure Jack Russell, and he was ticked off because I left him here today. So he decided to shite all over this apartment, and he did. He took a poop in every single room in this apartment, all over my old rug, all over everything. Well, I literally have 5 minutes to get ready for this interview, a Skype interview that I'm going to do with One American News from my little studio right here. And that wasn't enough time to clean up this mess. So I literally had to throw on a suit coat and shirt and do an interview with this face and the smell of death all over my apartment. So that was a long 5 minutes. And he went into timeout. We had it out. Because he does this because he's spiteful. And he's taught me more about myself than anything else in this life. Hey, come here. He's going to go in there. And so he got to spend some time in the bathroom alone, and then he started howling, and he got it. He figured it out. Come here. Come here. Let's see him real quick. What are you limping for? So here he is, the mad pooper who decided to be a little jerk and go to the bathroom all over the apartment today, didn't you? Yeah, I know. You got a cough. He's let's get this cough out. Let's act like we're old. All right. That it? You want to say goodbye to everybody? See if the mic's on. Yeah, it's on. Thank you. All right. Can we go to the A block now? This dog. He's going to be around until he's like 30. Get out of here. All right. Let's go to the A block. There's a little dog fun for you. All right, here's what we're going to do real quick, folks. I'm going to call. Let's see here if I can get this plugged in. My drill instructor, who I've had on this show before, an incredible man. He's trained. I don't know how many people are watching this show that were from my officer candidate class 029 or 8. In Pensacola, Florida. he just sent me this picture, which I've told this story. Actually, I'm going to show the picture after we get him on here. But let's hold on one second. Let me call him up, and let's see here. Stand by 1 second. Stand by. I keep wanting to call him Gunnery Sergeant, but it's First Sergeant. So I'm going to call him at this number. All right, here we go.
John Crouch speaking, United States Marine Corps, hoorah.
Well, I figured I'd bring you on because tonight, First Sergeant John Crouch, United States Marine Corps, I call you Gunny because you were my gunnery sergeant, the guy who made me into a man. And let me pull this picture up that you just had. I've told this story before. I can't believe you have this picture. If this is us, is this from 029 or 8?
Well, let's see if I can get this little phone to work because I'm at work, and
well,
there may be a time lapse. There may be a time lapse from me looking there because I'm looking at a cell phone with poor connection.
Well, anyway, I'll show the people what I got here. And this was, I've told the story before where you're beating us down, you're making us go get different articles from our room and coming back, and nobody's talked to us for like a week. And then you bring us out and you make us put our blankets over our head. And I remember sitting there and you telling us that when we remove this blanket, I can't remember your exact words, but it was very poetic and talking about how our lives were going to change. And when we pulled those blankets off, that's us standing in the sand pit. I don't know if that's particularly us, but that's what we went through. When we pulled those off, you were gone, and the upperclassmen were there. Todd Massow was a SEAL who was an enlisted SEAL who was going through officer candidate school, and he was there. And they had I don't know, it was fruit punch or something for us, and then they talked to us and told us the reality of what's to be expected of us, and it was a life-changing moment for me. I distinctly remember pulling that blanket off and realizing I was a part of something way bigger than myself.
That's exactly what the intent was, is that you're isolated, ostracized the entire class from the rest of the battalion of probably 6 or 7 other classes. And so with that, the goal is to make you feel alone, that all you've got is each other, and figure out a way to deal with me on a daily basis. And occasionally my fellow drill instructors who were more than generous to take their personal time and make it available to torture your ass. Torture you all. To get rid of those civilian-like qualities. And so I knew that when that blanket came off, I wasn't going to be present. I was going to be out of there like a superhero and let the upperclassmen bring you into the brotherhood. And you obviously, the experience worked the way I wanted it to, and that was that you felt an awful sense of relief. We're unsure if I was still here. I'm sure the upper candidates are telling you, don't worry, he's gone. And you felt protected and supported by a brotherhood.
Well, you know what? Why don't we go ahead and bring in another one of those brothers? I'm not going to tell you who it is, but this will be only the second time I've talked to this guy in just shy of 20 years when we left officer candidate school. So stand by. I'm going to have to call him here, so hold on 1 second. Let's see how I do this. Stand by. Nope, hold on. I did it wrong. Hold on, everybody. Sorry. I got to put his name in here real quick.
Well, meanwhile, all your listeners should be on their face doing push-ups until you get your act together.
That's right. They should.
That's how I occupied your time when we were waiting on someone to make a damn head call because they couldn't hold their bladder. We'll all do push-ups till you get back.
Let's see. It's got a okay, hold on a second here. I'm working technology as we do this. All right, let me select that. I'm gonna.
Would it help if I count down backwards, skipping a few numbers?
Probably
23, 22, 19, 17, 16, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're done.
Oh, my Lord. All right, let's see here. When I add the call, all right, hold on. All right, there it goes. Okay, hold on. Stand by, folks. All right, that's programmed in. Okay, here we go. All righty, are you there?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
All right, hey, John Crouch. I got Chris Butler with me on the phone. Freshly retired.
A raging flash come over my body because this is the same lieutenant commander that I trained 20 years ago. Invited me to be his guest speaker at his retirement. What an honor that was! First salute, last salute. Get to talk about him and his experience. But he shows up in his dress whites with a beard, and I asked to see his no shaving chit. And he produced one, but he didn't unfold it and present it. And I said, no, I grabbed it and opened it up to read it. It was up to date and accurate. So apparently he had some dirt on somebody in the medical field, and signed a fictitious chit for him so that he could attend his own retirement ceremony with an unshaven face. So that's kind of the personality of the whole class. Bad boys that constantly wanted to push the envelope.
Gillum, he's right. I can't deny it. He's got me.
So let me get this straight. The guy who shaved his head and kind of got in trouble for having an inappropriate haircut shows up on his last day with inappropriate hair. Is that the way that works?
That is pretty much exactly the way it works. I had totally forgotten about that. That is true. Remember when I shaved my head and I got in so much trouble for that.
But then you kept it, and then I ended up doing it. Now I got hair that looks like it's drunk up here. I literally haven't slept for almost 48 hours. John, I got to tell you this. I have newfound respect for you because I'm in the editing phase of this book, and writing a book is like nothing I've ever done before. It is a challenge, man. You have to. The problem with it is when you're inspired, you got to stick with it, because if you stop, you're going to lose it.
Well, my fear had to do with the fact of trusting civilians to edit my book, because they don't understand the lingo and the intensity of what I was writing about. And your best editing comes after you hit the send button, and then you go take a look at what you just hit.
I know. I noticed that, because when I got the edits back, I was like, did I really send this to begin with? I mean, it's like, anyway. We're waiting for Chris Butler to do his book.
Oh, yeah, that's it's coming. Now that I've got no job and I'm just sitting around in my underwear all day, I'll just get that pen and paper going, well, that's for sure.
Based on his maturity, and by the way, he may have matured in growth rings around his life cycle. Of course, he's still very physically fit, but his emotional maturity is still that of a 17-year-old. And so it's had to be a picture book.
Hey,
he's got a lot of cool pictures.
Oh, Gillum, don't let him kid yourself. We were his favorite two candidates, and he knows it. He'll never admit it, but he enjoyed screaming and yelling and pushing us for 13 weeks.
If it wasn't for us, Rocky the squirrel would not have gotten a proper burial. Honestly, we went over the top because of Chris and I.
Yeah, that is the truth. We did a lot of things, Gillum. Let's not kid ourselves.
Well, let me tell you, so those of you that are watching, and we've got literally millions of people watching, I guess, here. Chris is the one that I'm always talking about, and I even mentioned this in the book, who taught me how to study. Believe it or not, I know it's hard to believe a guy from Arkansas didn't know how to study, but I graduated high school, and nobody in my family had ever been to college. I made my way through college trying to learn everything, not trying to study for tests. And so when I got to officer candidate school, I sold everybody on why I should be the president of the class. They bought off on it, and they elected me president of the class, which did not make some of the Mustangs happy. And I proceeded to fail the first test because I didn't know how to pump and dump. I did not know how to do that. And so, John, I don't know if I ever told you the story, but Chris and I used to go into a room, and he saved me. Otherwise, I would have, I don't know, I was on the bubble for 13 weeks. I failed the first test of officer candidate school, so I could not fail another test. We would go into a room, and he taught me how to systematically study and how to walk in a circle and concentrate and go back and forth, back and forth. And since that point, Chris, I got to tell you, I have taught so many people how to study. I've had moms write me when I tell the story, because I've told the story on Hannity's radio show, 17 million people. I've had moms write me, kids write me saying, how do you do this? How do you do this? And it's something that I've shared with people, and it works. So I can't thank you enough.
Well, it's an honor. I tell you, you know what? The way I saw it is I met my best friend on like day one that I knew that this is who I'm going to latch on to for 13 weeks to get through this. And it was like, well, you're not going anywhere. So whatever it takes. I mean, we would stay up till 2, 3 in the morning sometimes doing that. And that was actually a pretty regular thing. Nothing's changed.
Y'all had a different experience than I did, because my first day in recruit training, San Diego, 1980, when I got dropped off after about 5 days on the base to my permanent team of drill instructors. In the first 10 minutes, I realized how much I hated my bunkmate, because we lived in an open squad bay. Because they had us all put our fingers in front of our face, and they walked down the line, and some people were chest pushed backwards, flying over their footlockers. And if you were touched, you were supposed to remember that you were touched. And so when they finished, he says, if you were touched, get up here. And there was not enough people. So he says, you pigs, go back there and get your bunkmate. Right? So I still don't know what the mystery is. I'm about to find out. He says, since you disgusting pigs want to put your fingernails in your mouth and chew on them, I'm going to solve that problem. You're going to clean these, I'll clean up the language. You're going to clean these toilets. And I whispered to him, I says, I don't even know your freaking name, and I already hate your guts. And, oh, man, I hate that kid. And to this day, I've never chewed my nails. And said, oh, no, he couldn't keep his freaking fingers out of his mouth, and brought me into his horrible nightmare for 13 weeks. But, yeah.
That's funny.
That's
you had
interesting.
A better experience than I did.
That's interesting that you tell that story, and I'll tell you what, and I don't know if you remember this story or not, Butler, but we, when you had us, I'm going to put your names up here real quick. When you had us, we just had met you and for the first time. It was after we were in the hallway getting where you made us shave. Again, this is so torturous, man. You made us shave against the grain with a Bic razor with no shaving cream, and then you take that, the alcohol spray and the mouthwash, Aquavelva,
and a spray bottle.
So you tell us open, and you spray the mouthwash in our mouth, and then you say, what do you tell us to put our head back, and you spray our necks?
It was simple. I had 2 bottles. One was called Dragon Breath and marked as such, and the other one was called Aquavelva. And the instructions are quite simple. When I say open, you will open your mouth and close your eyes. When I say close, you will close your mouth and keep your eyes shut. Closing is when we put Aquavelva on. Open is when I fill your gutter with a special concoction I made, 50% Viadent mouthwash. Viadent is like drinking scotch. It just immediately gives you a weird sensation in the mouth that's not nice. And then the other 50% was Listerine to help erode the gum line. And so the idea was to make sure that all of those who never practiced proper hygiene, they had cadaver breath, that they had an opportunity to understand the importance of it when that chemical warfare is being waged inside your mouth, and you're swishing violently until the hygiene inspection is over with, so you can go spit it out.
So here's the story, and the reason I was bringing this up, because you said something about fingernails. I remember standing on the line. I don't know who this kid is. I'll probably never see him again ever for the rest of my life, and I don't know what happened to him after this. But you were going back and forth, and idiots are so nervous that you tell them to put their head back and they open their mouth, so you spray their mouth full of Aquavelva, and then spray the bad breath stuff on their face, and that was kind of comical and stuff. So you get to this one guy, and you literally jumped back against the wall and said. And I'll go ahead and say, you looked at me and said, holy shit, you are dying from the inside out, and you don't even know it. Because you were asking to see our fingernails. So we'd stand there kind of in a position of attention, and you'd say, and we'd do our hands upside down, and you look at our fingernails, and you jump back and look at this guy because his fingernails were thick and yellow. And you said, you're dying from the inside out, and you don't even know it. Get out of here. We never saw that guy again. He was gone.
There's a hilarious movie with Steve Martin called Roxanne, where he's got this super long nose, and he's the fire marshal for a small town. And everybody makes fun of his nose, so it's no surprise to him being a mature adult. And so he's come up with, more than 20 insults that he could make about his nose. And it's a great scene in the bar. And I often reflected on that whole concept because during my hygiene inspection, I would try to have at least 20 unique original statements about someone's horrendous breath. Because you have cadaver breath. Yeah, your breath smells like his ass, and I don't want to know why. You ever have this is great for women. Have you ever been on a date? Usually they'll say yes. Oh, I bet he appreciated that. Let me guess. He put mortician's cream on his upper lip so he wouldn't have to smell your nasty breath. There's a biological war being waged in your mouth, and you don't even know it.
The other thing I remember tremendously about this is, and most people that have never been in the military, they don't get this, but it's not just in officer candidate school. Ranger school is the same way. We'd be in a hallway, and you'll teach an entire class on something just standing in the hallway, and that's the course of instruction. It's not like you go to a room and there's a chalkboard. You'll do it right there. And I remember you jumped up on a table and you were teaching us something, and you slipped off the table.
He slipped off.
And I flipped or slipped?
He slipped off.
No, you slipped off. And it was not that I would ever laugh about that, but I just knew that we were going to pay for you slipping off. And it wasn't our fault.
We did.
I think we did, yeah.
Well, we absolutely did. I'm sure we sat in his chair.
Well, that's so you can think about life. Well, that wasn't the only time this ever happened to me. They had these concrete tables at Paris Island that the recruits would wash their personal clothing on back in the day before they went to laundry services. Well, it sits up about 40 inches, and I'm only 68.5 inches. And so I was wearing boots one night, and I was having the recruits pop blankets repeatedly over and over again in the barracks to the third floor, and then back outside around the wash table. And I'd stand on this concrete table, and I'd say, crack them, aye, sir. And they're snapping these wool blankets, tearing up their rotor cuffs and deltoid muscles, and doing all other kinds of damage while they make that wool blanket crack like a whip. And so it was dusk time, and so it's like the fifth time I've gone up there that evening, and I leapt upward, and my toes got parallel but not over the concrete. And so then I went down and went, of course, all across the shins and the kneecap, and I hit the ground. And at that point, now they've already got the blankets over the head because they couldn't see it, but they may have figured out by listening to what happened. And then I had to get my butt back up on that concrete because I wasn't going to let the table or the pigs win. And that was the shortest pop session they ever got, while I held on to a light pole so I could steady myself. Then I sent the pigs inside.
Well, I don't know if a lot of people would appreciate, and I've been having this conversation all week, unfortunately, about this whole transgender issue, about the Spartan lifestyle, and about the way it's funny because I was on Andrew Wilkow's show today with Kristen Beck, the Navy SEAL who is now transgender. And I started laughing when we started the interview, and I said, "Listen, you're I don't care what you've done and who you are or whatever, but the fact is we're two team guys, and it's hard for me to keep a straight face while we're having this conversation because everything I want to throw a joke in there, every single thing. That's the way we joke about stuff like that." And I remember one time you were given another class in the hallway, and some girl, and this does not reflect on John Crouch and the way he feels about women. This is the fact that everybody was treated the same when they were in officer candidate school. But this girl from another class came walking around the corner and braced against the wall, which we're supposed to do, and say, "Good afternoon, sir," and wait for you to tell us to go or move or do whatever. And you were teaching a class, and so she screams out, "Good afternoon, sir." Well, you were teaching a class, and so you didn't say anything. And I'm sure she had somewhere to go quickly, and she was frozen. She couldn't move. She didn't know what to do. And finally, you looked down there at her because you were so frustrated, and you just looked at her and you said, "You can go." She probably only had to go like 2 doors down from you. You said, "You can go around, you fat hog." And so she barreled out the door and then disappeared. We didn't see her again. I don't know where she went.
The good old military days.
Well, I had a fat hog. I'll leave her name left to those who were there to witness it. But let's just say her name was Johnson. That's a pretty common name, but it wasn't a common name at all.
Right.
The one that she had. And it was Poopyville, which is the first week in training. If you're a Marine, it's what you consider recruit receiving. But the drill instructors put them through the first few days before they start their real training. And so I had the hogs on on their backs doing leg lifts right at Reveille out in the hallway. And she was so fat and out of shape and failed to properly prepare herself for officer candidate school, being Marine Corps trained, that it was physically impossible for her to lift her heels off the deck and her big fat pumpkin head off the deck at the same time. So it's one or the other, like a teeter-totter, but it was not going to be the two of them at the same moment. And the proper exercise is feet 6 inches off the deck and then up to 90 degrees. And, of course, the head and shoulders always off the deck. And so Fat Body couldn't. And I've been picking on her weight since she showed up because she's extremely weak. And if you want to piss off a drill instructor, show up weak. And I said something to the effect, I bet if there's a damn donut between your legs, you can get your frickin' fat head up there. And so she DOR'd within seconds of that statement. So DOR, for those who don't know, I quit. I don't want to chase my dream of being an officer. I thought this was a academic passageway, passageway to a commission. It is not an academic school. It should be a gut check every day to find out how bad do you want this. You can learn important information after officer candidate school. That time that you're officer candidate school, that ought to be the time that you're being tested every day. How bad do you want that commission? Because the last thing I need is a frickin' officer out there that has reached a moment that, well, this isn't fun. I really don't enjoy my career anymore, so I don't really want to do this. Hey, your enlisted sailors and Marines deserve better than that. And,
amen.
Can you just tell everybody real quick in line with that, when you're calling somebody a hog or a pumpkin head, and there were plenty of guys, I mean, the fact is you did not shy away from pointing out weaknesses that anybody had, but the reason why is because we have a set of standards and people need to meet those standards. Just enlighten the people that don't understand. I know there's some people have been going back and forth with me, which I'm going to talk about after this interview, about fairness in the military and how it's not fair to tell people that they can't serve. But fairness really has no place in there. Am I correct?
Correct. Well, my opinion is this. And military service, it's a privilege, not a right. Mm-hmm. It has never been a right. It's always been a privilege. There's a set of standards you have to meet, first of all, just to be eligible. And so my issue about the transgender thing is some people say this is wrong. They're using the argument that we're killing their opportunity to pursue their dream, their passion in life, and that may be to serve in uniform. Well, guess what? So where are we going to draw that line? How about the person who's morbidly obese and has always wanted to be in uniform? Only we have to use tent material now to make them uniforms because they're so fat. And some people seem to think that, well, I have a thing about fat people. No, I don't. And there's this guy named Sergeant Major Ouellet, O-U-E-L-L-E-T, an awesome sergeant major back in the 1990s. And he was at a professional military education with all of us Marines in the auditorium. He said, let me tell you something. I have nothing against fat people. Hell, my mother's fat, but she's not wearing the uniform of the United States Marine. There's standards, and you will meet those standards, and you will not be serving in my Marine Corps. And that's exactly how I feel about it. So should we go ahead and, since we're not allowing those who exceed weight standards to no longer have a weight standard, that we simply have certain jobs that they do, and maybe they're not deployable, they just stay stateside, and let those healthy younger people that have better DNA and better passions and commitments serve the hard time overseas. But you fat bodies, why, you're going to stay here because you don't have the physical fitness to do the job that's necessary. And heck, while we're at it, let's go ahead and take the visually impaired, because why should they be denied military service and the pride of being in the United States military? Isn't there jobs they can do? Wrong answer. Every person who's in uniform should be a trigger puller. End of story. I don't care what branch of service you are. Talk to the soldiers that were with I think it was the 507th that was taking prisoners back in 2003. Jessica Lynch little convoy. Mm-hmm. A lot of the soldiers not all of them, a lot of them, and this is by word of mouth from a general who gave a speech to us one time from the Army. He says, did not know how to apply immediate action to their rifle because of a jammed bullet. And they were not trigger pullers. They were simply a mechanic or a driver or a supply person. They didn't go with the concept of every person is a trigger puller. That's got to be the first and foremost, and you can have a fancy job after that.
Absolutely. I keep trying to tell everybody that ultimately it doesn't matter if you push a pencil or if you're a SEAL, you're a combatant. And you must be prepared for that. So there's none of this like, let's just go in and, like, I have a relative that was in the military. They said, one day their chief, I believe it was, he's got the corny little Navy mustache and balding spot. And next day he shows up with a skirt on and is expected to be treated as a female. Same mustache, same bald spot. Mm-hmm. It breaks down the unity, and it breaks. I don't care what anybody says. Social norms are created because nature says this is what it's going to take to procreate in the species. And when you go against that, it's not that you can't handle it. It's that it causes waves of reaction in society, and that's where social norms are created. That's why when you get on an elevator, you feel a little odd because nature says when you're enclosed with other animals that you should be prepared to fight because you don't know how long you're going to be in there. That's the way nature works. So people feel odd when they get into an elevator and they create a social norm. The social norm is you'll stay forward and you'll shut your mouth and you won't do anything to make anybody nervous. Well, it's the same thing when you got some guy who has a mustache and a balding spot and he's wearing a skirt when he was wearing a man's uniform the day before. It's going to cause certain reactions in people that are dictated by social norms, by nature. That's just nobody wants to talk about this stuff, and they blatantly just scoot right over it, and they don't want to mention it, and they call you prejudiced or racist, but they don't want to admit the fact that these really actually exist. These social norms.
Let me throw you a curveball a lot of people don't think about. And how about the fact that, let's say a person is in a wheelchair. And what do a lot of parents teach their children, at least during our era of, I'm in my 57 this year, and so I was taught, I know social norm was you don't look at somebody who has a disfigurement or has a disability. You do not look at them. Well, my eyes opened up about 15 years ago. It was a show where celebrities, usually athletes, would spend 30 days experience what life is like for somebody else, that they want to have that empathy experience. So here's this professional ball player, football or basketball, I don't recall which. He has this great mansion, and at that point, he spent 30 days in a wheelchair, no cheating. And his spouse had to assist him in that process because it's a hard adaptation to make. And he said one of the things that was most bothersome is people rarely would look me in the eye. They look over me, look around me, but would not look at me. And children were told, don't stare. And so here we are disenfranchising somebody because we're taking recognition that they're different. It catches our attention. And a lot of people don't realize that it's in our DNA of every animal, every insect, everything that's living on this earth has a DNA that's wired for stereotyping, and it's to save your life. And initially, going back several thousand years, it had to do with recognizing a different tribe. You can't trust them, you don't know them. And of course, we expect that through education over the as we become more educated, that we can understand that they may look different or have different customs, but we can accept them and be equal to them. Well, that works up to a point, but you still have, for instance, dangerous breeds of dogs. Now, you may have succeeded at training a wolf to be a nice pet, but don't be surprised if the wolf someday decides to eat that child that just came over. And the same thing with ISIS and others. So it's not a matter of, who do we look out for? We look out for people that we've been made aware that are creating crimes against humanity, or crimes of legal law. We look for those indicators that tell us that we should be on alert. But
let me show. I'm going to show two pictures that Chris Butler sent me. This is us. That's Chris with the light on him. That's me, both officer and gentleman, but with no rank and insignia. Or we had rank, but no insignia at that point. That's the day we graduated. And then this is the shirts that we designed. My favorite number was 43. Let's see if that comes in there. There it is, 43. And, of course, Butler wanted to be a SEAL. He then ended up becoming a bombardier navigator, so he's a SEAL wannabe is what his name was. And my
Hey, wait. That number, hold up. You're not telling the right story on that number.
What, it's 43. It was Richard Petty's number. That was.
Yeah.
What story are you remembering?
Do you not recall class rankings, my friend?
Was that 43rd in my grades?
Okay, so Mulvaney, our class officer, Lieutenant Mulvaney, had us. This had nothing to do with our drill instructor. This was our class officer. He had us rank 1 through 43 at that point, because we started with 52. But when this exercise went down, Mulvaney wanted us to rank, and he specifically told everyone, do not rank based on your friendship in the class. And so your number one was me, and my number one was you. But we had legitimate reasons for it.
Right.
Well, if you recall, you got ranked 43 out of 43, and I was ranked 41 out of 43, and we got called into Mulvaney's office. He was pissed.
I don't remember this at all for some strange reason.
You went in first. We got pulled out of drill. Because John had nothing to do with this. It was like Mulvaney pulled a prank on him and said, "I want those two over." We had to go stand out in the hallway. You went in first. We had no idea, John, what was going to happen. We go in. You go in. Well, first we both go in and we get our asses yelled at because we ranked each other first and second. Apparently we didn't listen to the rules. Then he kicks me out, and he gives you the whatever, but. I go in, and his tone's totally changed because of what you said. And that's when you brought up, he had no idea that I was holding those study sessions.
Right.
And you brought that up, and he actually, I don't know if you recall this, but he actually pulled everyone together and apologized for making us do that exercise.
I don't even. I absolutely do not remember that exercise, but I do know. Yeah. I do know that I don't care what anybody says. You and I were the powerhouses as far as like charismatic leadership in that class. There's always going to be, especially when you have Mustangs. Mustang is people who are prior enlisted. There's always going to be tension there because, and rightfully so. I've learned a lot since that day and age where if I had it all to do over again, I would just automatically said, because I know a lot more about leadership now, and I think that their experience and their wisdom and knowledge and understanding should have been respected, and they should have just automatically been in charge, or they should have been mentoring us on how to be in charge. That's the other thing that could have happened, But you get people in that environment, and the egos start to, after you start growing your hair back out and you've been there for a couple of weeks, the the resentment builds, and charismatic individuals who are there for the life experience, they don't necessarily rub well with people who are prior enlisted a lot of the time.
No, they do not. They absolutely do not. And we were definitely not very popular when it came to that. I think a lot of our problem is that
we wanted a PT.
We did want a PT all the freaking time.
Yeah.
And we wanted John to push us to the point where we were just like dying. And unfortunately, because we would purposely screw up to get pushed, we brought them along with us.
Well, I saw the same thing in the FBI Academy. I saw people literally crumbling because we were going to have some physical punishment put on us, or just physical training. And I saw people crumble because they did not like us being, how when you're playing around with instructors and you're taunting them to give you some more workout, and it's fun. And it would crush people's souls. They did not like that. They did not like that at all. It's as if you were messing with their, with their sleep in the morning or something. It ticked them off. So,
no, I think a lot of people came into OCS and just weren't physically prepared for that.
They wanted an academic process.
Yeah.
You're spot on, John. That's so true. What do you mean we got to run here? What's going on here? I remember I came into that thing almost in the best shape of my life, and I was kind of like, we going to do more here?
My goal was to see how many of you I could make quit and give you as much stress that's artificial as possible. How about just walking into while you're all in class, checking out your rooms to see if they're clean and organized and meet standards. I remember that, I can't remember how I came up with the idea, but I would look at the racks. I wouldn't destroy the worst one. I wouldn't get the best one. I get one that's kind of like in the middle for quality. I would destroy it. And I made mental note which room and which rack, and I'd do it every freaking day. And I did this several classes in a row, and I heard from, because you can't just finally get to talk to us like humans the last 2 weeks. Yeah. I had learned that one of the roommates would come back, and he would just spaz out and freak out. This is bullshit. I make a better rack than all of you. Who's doing this? And he goes, it's the drill instructor, man. We're in class. No, it's not. It's got to be somebody else. And, of course, its only purpose is how can they handle stress?
I tell you what else is crazy about Officer Candidate School is that, and you saw that in Ranger School as well, people will give up their career for sugar. They will literally give up their career to sneak some sugar.
I have a sugar story for you. So it's parasailing, but hey, the whole concept's the same of torturing you pigs. So I got a platoon. It's my second one. It's platoon 1050, Bravo Company, parasailing, years 1987. So we've been in training about 2 months, and we're out in the field doing about 10 days of field training. And my rule was, it's July. We're not drinking hot chocolate or coffee. That's contraband. You will not open those packages. You will not open up the gum, the 2 pieces of chiclet. It's there to clean your teeth. We all have toothbrushes, so we don't need to clean our teeth. You will not eat the dessert. And I made their meal times as torturous as possible. So they're sitting there in formation on the old airfield, and I'm watching them like a hawk. And all of a sudden, I catch one of the Musso twins. The Musso twins were from Haiti, as I recall, and they were almost identical. And I seen Musso number 1, and he had chocolate powder on his face, but it was a different complexion than his own dark pigmentation. And I says, Musso! And he shouted back instinctively, and this big puff of powder comes out from Coco. At that point, he was mine. I says, oh, we have an addiction to chocolate, do we? And he said, yes, sir. And I says, well, I'm going to cure you of your addiction, boy. Give up your meal now. And so I had the squad leaders go by and collect his meal. I says, I want all the cocoa let me kill this phone here. I want all the cocoa packets right now. And they brought them over there. And I says, there, you get to eat as much as you want. Oh, his eyes are big. But what he didn't know is I wasn't going to let him drink water. He was going to drink. He was going to eat my cocoa. And so with that, he started eating away, and he reached for the water. I says, I didn't say you could have water. I said you can have cocoa. Now, you eat that cocoa. Well, you reach a point of saturation. There's no more saliva in your mouth, and now you're trying to kill yourself with this dry cocoa. But his brother requested permission to speak. And I says, what do you want, freak? He says, he extended his arms holding his meal. Cocoa, sir. So I tortured the 2 of them. And so I knew something else had happened. I gave him some warm canteen water to start washing the stuff down. And it only took about 10 minutes. And Mother Nature hit him because he hasn't been exposed to rich chocolate and cocoa and sugar in a long time. And it ran right through his colon. And he needed to make a head call like right now. And so I said, oh, you need to make a head call, huh? I says, good, go. And it was like 200 yards away to the Porta-John. And then I started throwing pine cones. I'd throw a pine cone, grenade. Of course, he had to hit the deck, feet toward the blast, non-shooting hand behind the neck, and other arm underneath the body with the weapon. And I said, how long do you stay down? And then we did that. And then I threw big sticks down his direction because of a nuclear blast, which is you stay down for 90 seconds or until all debris stops falling, until finally he made it out of my range of throw. But
listen, that's a long story. I remember something just as evil. It was when everybody was craving sugar again. When you realize what you've been addicted to through politics and through advertising. Sugar is one of the biggest addictions that you can ever have. And people go nuts for it. And I remember it got to a point where I don't remember what week this was, where we were going to get to have dessert because we couldn't have dessert before that. And so everybody And you told everybody it's yeah, you're going to be able to have dessert. And so everybody was going up there and grabbing cake and pie. And you came back and made everybody throw it out, and you gave everybody tuna fish. And you said, "This is better for you. This is what you need to be eating."
Well, what I usually would do, I made because I'm addicted to chocolate. I'm not going to lie about it. Always have been. And so when you all finally, after a few weeks, got the privilege of quietly speaking at your table, looking at your food tray when you eat instead of a 1,000-mile stare, not having to square your food when it square the meals, which is you load up the utensil without ever looking at your plate, using tactile sensation. You raise it in a vertical manner, and only a vertical manner, till it's parallel to the lips, and then you move it directly into your open pie hole until you've removed the food from the utensil, and you can only have one hand above the table unless you're cutting something with the other hand. Otherwise, your hand's on your left knee, be it on the deck flat 45 degrees. So I would say, y'all trust me? Yes, sir, is the appropriate answer. Do I know you pretty well? Yes, sir. And, of course, you're all motivated because you're finally going to get to choose what you want for dessert. It says, well, then, I'm going to choose your dessert. And so I would wait at the end of the dessert line there, and as you came through, and I'd look at you, I go, beans salad. And I put it on their tray, and cottage cheese, and more bean salad, and all those horrible things that I would never eat. And but only randomly, I'd pick maybe 2 people to receive like chocolate cookies or a brownie, and never the the president or any key player, and never the worst officer candidate, just 2 random ones, and it's just my random chance.
Hey, hold on 1 second, guys. I gotta go on the Twitter real quick so I can block somebody because they're harassing Maureen. So you're gonna hear some background sound. So just stand by for 1 second, and then. I want to ask you when we come back, John, what was the greatest beating that you ever put on somebody, or not just beating, but like scary thing that ever happened? Like, let me. You're gonna hear me for just a second. Scary thing that ever.
Sure.
Happened. Hold on, I gotta find this guy real quick.
You're gonna hear me for just a second.
Scary thing that ever. Sure. Hold on, and we are gonna have to tell the blood clot story.
Oh, most definitely. A live radio.
All right, there he goes.
Get your beard away from that receiver. I just know it's touching.
Oh, it absolutely is, because I'm not shaving it anymore.
Okay, you're back.
It's gonna become a Gillum beard here soon, or Gillum goatee.
So I remember one time, because Gunnery Sergeant Dozier was probably one of the meanest looking human beings I've ever seen in my life, and
at least one of the scariest.
Yeah, he was scary. And so it was him and you, and I don't remember who the other guys were. Who was the DI that came in there towards the end? The guy that looked a little bit like Barney Fife, but he was you could tell he was probably a serial killer when he wasn't working.
Was it possibly Gunner Sergeant Brady?
Yes, that was him.
With the
Yes.
With the sunken chest, yeah.
Yeah,
he ended up retiring as Sergeant Major. Yeah, he's good to go.
But when he's in uniform, you would not want to mess with that guy. And he just, I don't know what the thing was, but it just put the fear in you the way he just looked like. But anyway, so this I think it was a female, was trying to walk. She didn't know which way to walk, and I don't know if you guys do this stuff on purpose, but like you get in a position in the lunch in the lunch area where we're eating there, and you can't walk around you. So you either got to go way around, and this girl, she gets stuck, and so she tries to step in between them, and she bumps Dozier with that tray, and in just an instant, he took his hand and went straight up with it. Boom! And hit it, knocked the tray and all the scraps everywhere, all over the place. And then, so 2 of them start going off on her, and then it was like a feeding frenzy for sharks. There could have been a drill instructor outside. They would have somehow sensed it and ran in. Before long, she had like 5 drill instructors on her, just poking her with their hat, and like, you guys are all in her face and everything. And it was probably one of the most, I'm not kidding you, it was one of the most brutal things I've ever seen outside of several people beating somebody up in a bar.
Hey, for your listeners, I'm just gonna say this to give the anyone that's never gone through anything like this an idea. It is chow time during OCS or boot camp, or I can only speak for OCS.
It's like jumping in the water in the Bahamas with sharks.
It is like walking blindfold through a minefield. You are just waiting to hear that click underneath your foot, because you have no idea when it's coming. You may be following all the rules, at least you think you are, but like you said, you grazed.
Remember when Eddie Murphy
an elbow by accident?
Eddie Murphy used to talk about Aunt Bunny and how he used to dream that Aunt Bunny was coming to get him because she would always try to kiss him and everything. That's the way you wake up at night thinking John Crouch is coming to get me. You know, I mean, the beatings were so ferocious, and what's so strange about it, you just pointed out perfectly there, Butler, is that it was in the chow hall. It's not like you were out in the field somewhere getting chased.
Nope.
This is where you go to eat, to nourish your body. And, you know, your body feels good when it gets food in it. But that was quickly destroyed by I don't know. But we used to play games with it. Like I would sit across and I would have grapes, and we have to eat in a square like this right here for a period of time while we're there. I'm sure we had to do it longer. And I would take a grape.
No, we did. We did it. We had to go 6 weeks instead of 4.
And I would go to my mouth, and then I would take that grape, and I'd go, boom, and I'd fling it across at whoever was sitting next to me. But the worst was we had to use our utensils to eat chicken, but we still had to do it in the square, not looking at it. I don't know. It was that was the craziest thing. Anyway, John, what is your greatest memory of one of those sessions? Is there anything that stands out where you guys went off on somebody?
Well, one of the most interesting torture sessions all started with a class 09-97 was the class number. And so I had gotten my hands on an unsecured wall locker. I can't remember if it was left unlocked or I got a hold of the combination, which I swore if I ever found a combination, I would destroy you all. And because that's the best way to ruin a career is to have a written down combination for a safe. So we teach you from day one, you got to memorize stuff. So I somehow got a hold of an open wall locker. I took the M1 Garand rifle, which is what you all carried and used, and I took it out to the pit in a post-hole digger, and I dug a deep hole, and I broke the weapon down into the upper receiver or lower receiver, and I buried them in there side by side and covered about 12 inches of sand, and making sure that you couldn't tell where I was at, watered down the whole pit, and then I waited for the class to get back. Meanwhile, of course, the wall locker looked like it exploded because I made sure that I inventoried everything that was in there. Never mattered whether you had a major inspection the next day. That's your problem. You shouldn't have left it unsecured. So class comes back. I get the class out there, and I torture them in the pit, and I'd wear them out with exercises and give them time to dig with their fingers to look for it and more time to exercise. And all of a sudden, they felt loose sand below the hard pack. And that was like the idea that you could find a potential idea of where it might be, is because about 8 inches down is a hard pack of sand that's not been disturbed in eons. And so they got excited, and I'm thinking to myself, man, they're way off the mark by 20 feet. And they upload a black plastic bag, and my heart goes like, what the heck is that? And they're going to pull out a limb or something. And they said, we found it. And they're all excited, and they unwrap it, and I see it's the stock of an M1 Garand that had been busted at some previous point in history. And probably the drill instructor who was with that class had them do a burial ceremony and bury the remains of that rifle. More than likely is what happened. And so
that's what they found.
I said something to the effect, 0! And he goes, freeze, Cadet, freeze. How dare you unearth sacred remains? That's an M1 Garand rifle. It gave its life here at OCS. And you have the gall to unearth the sacred remains of an M1 Garand? Put it back where you found it now. Right? So they put it back and filled in the hole, and I wore them out a lot more for doing such a horrible, evil thing. And then eventually they found the rifle, and they got to go back inside. And so I thought that was the end of the story. And the next morning I come into work to wake them up at 0500 for PT. That's what time we always wake up for PT. And sitting on my desk is that nasty, wet, full of sand, broken rifle stock. They went out there and unearthed it again and left it on my desk. And I thought, I'm going to kill this class. I'm going to kill them. And so with that, another event happened, and that was 7 rifles, I believe it was, I got my hands on, and from the same class that were unsecured because someone had written down combinations on their little notebook that was 2 inches by 3 inches. And so I found the lockers, I took all the rifles, and I had them and I laid them on my desk because I was going to kill the class when they got out. Well, they came back and they realized that their rifles are gone. So they went looking for them. And so they went and spied from the porch, and they seen the rifles on my desk. And so they entered my office, took the 7 rifles, and ran away with them, and they had them. Well, we just got a brand new chief drill instructor named Master Gunner Sergeant Jerry Holtry, and he was trying to clean things up and change the attitude down there and see how things are happening. So you never want to push the bear to see when it's going to strike. And I needed to know whether I needed to tell him I just lost 7 rifles. So I didn't want to do that because that's a bad thing to do, to tell him that I just lost 7 rifles. And so I went to the class, interrupted the officer or the chief that was talking to him, and I said, I need to ask you a question right now, and I better get a truthful answer because the truth will come out today. I had 7 rifles from this class on my desk. And if you know anything about the disappearance of those 7 rifles from my desk, you better speak right now. And so they actually came clean and said that they took them. I said, fine, I'm going to torture your ass tonight. And so I felt better knowing that I didn't have to tell the Master Guns I'm missing 7 rifles. And so when they were done with academics that day, I had a long PT session for those 7 idiots. And so I got on the 1MC microphone, blasting through the entire battalion barracks. I said, I want the following 7 pigs in my pit now. And they come running out there in PT gear. I said, what's the uniform of the day? Wash khakis. Why are you in the PT uniform? You have exactly, and of course I know how long it takes to get things done. I gave them not enough time to get up there and put their wash khaki uniform on and be back out in my pit. And of course they don't get to take the short, fast way in. They have to go around the outside of the building, around the block to the farthest staircase to get up there. They then change clothes and run back down. It's like doing a marathon in intervals. And so they show up back in the pit too slow, and then that says go back and get in the PT uniform. We do that until we can finally get there fast enough in the uniform. And then I said, describe to me what the uniform of wash khakis is. And of course I pointed who the pig was, and I said, then why are you wearing white socks? Or why are you wearing a T-shirt underneath your wash khakis? So we went through this game over and over again. And I thought, why are they not dying? Because it's like they've been rejuvenated. And I thought to myself, I bet they're taking a shortcut. So I went around the other way, waiting for them to come around the long way around the block. I knew how long it'd take, and they never showed up. When they were out of sight, they went up that short staircase right above the drill instructor's office. And what had happened was the class, although they were billeted at the opposite end of the barracks, they had taken a pit crew full of cold drinks and you name it. They had a pit crew there that when they came up there, they just stood there. They were stripped and put new clothes on like fighters, and they were rehydrated, and they would have time to catch their breath, and they come running back down. So
who was this class?
09-97.
It was one before us, right, John? Or that was
no,
before us.
No, long before you, because in that particular year of 97, it went all the way up to 23-97, maybe 24-97.
Oh,
and then it was 02, 9 or 8, and so that was it. The reason that class was so difficult, I think, is because of the personalities, and that always determines whether the class will be easy or tough. In that class, I had a former Marine recon corporal. I had a Navy SEAL named Phillips, who was an E6, a Petty Officer First Class, Navy SEAL, going to the officer side. And then I had a kid named Clay Tippins, who wants to be a Navy SEAL and has spent a lot of time around Admiral Stockdale and General Ray Davis. So we had 3 strong personalities in the class.
No, Tippins became a SEAL, and then he went downhill after that. Yes.
But that was the problem with that class, was just simply the personalities of making it a memorable experience. And
okay, I got to ask these guys something, because Sean Wilson is watching, and so is Aaron Zielinski. Do you guys remember that story about the class ranking? Because I don't remember that. I don't remember that at all. I thought that shirt was because I like 43, and that's my favorite number. But
no, dude. You got ranked 43rd out of 43 candidates.
So it was
by your classmates. Hey,
John.
I went from the top to the bottom.
41, bro.
Hey, 43, I think I can explain this to you.
Yeah.
It's probably the reason you remember such a fond number, like associated with car racing or whatever, is because it is a way to save face from being the rock of the class. Now, I'll give you an example for that. I had a class, 15907. 15907 gave me a class T-shirt, and the moniker they put on the back of my shirt for my name that they had assigned me. Of course, for those civilians listening, we don't get this until the last 2 weeks when we treat them like humans. And it said, Dad. And they said, of course, they always talk about the why, the name Dad, and shh, here comes Dad, But still, just the fatherly image didn't sit well with me. So at the end of it, the ceremony, the other drill instructors started chiding me about being Dad, and that I was probably a really nice dad and stuff like that. And a good one in there, who's now his name is Commander David Scott Wells. He spoke up and he said, Gunner Sergeant Willett, Dad stands for death and destruction. So he covered for me quite well.
Right.
So if anyone ever asked me if I was a sweet dad, no, I was death and destruction.
Well, for some reason I blocked out the fact that I was hated. I don't know.
So I think a story there is a famous story that needs to be told, and it's a short one. So I'm sitting in the chow hall next to my partner in crime, Gunner Sergeant Shell Todd Willett, and from Wyoming. And they're probably not listening to this because they probably don't even have internet out there yet in Wyoming. But he said to me toward the end of training, he says, I'll tell you about this after I get done. Zielinski! And so Zielinski was, Aaron Zielinski was a candidate that was in line to return his tray to the scullery and then exit the chow hall. And so he steps out from the line, one side step, faces half left to face me and Gunner Sergeant Willett, and without making eye contact says, yes, sir. Says, you know what I want, boy, get over here. And so he reports up. He said, well, what's it going to be? Blood clot, sir. He says, good choice. And so
he didn't have a choice in that name, by the way.
So Zielinski gets back in line, returns his tray. So Willett said, he says, hey, listen, you weren't here last night, and I seen Zielinski going down to return his tray, and I thought to myself, looks like that pig's going to make it. So I called him out. I said, Zielinski. And Zielinski was terrified because he thought he had done something wrong, was going to be tortured in some way by Gunner Sergeant Willett, a man to be feared. And so he reported to him, and he said, Zielinski, it looks like you just might make it on this program. So therefore, I'm going to help you out. You need a call sign. Now, for my reader, for those on the show tonight who don't know who Zielinski is, Zielinski was born with a very prominent birthmark on the left side of his face.
He looks like Braveheart, but it's red instead of blue.
Yes, but it was the size of his whole hand, and so he couldn't hide that he had a birthmark. And so the good thing is he had a great personality, so you don't even notice the damn thing. And so he says, Zielinski, it looks like you're going to make it through this program. Therefore, you need a call sign. And so I'm going to give you 3 to pick from. And so the first one's going to be strawberry, road rash. No, maybe it was hickey. And the third one was blood clot. And I don't want to know your answer now, but the next time I see you, you will tell me what your answer is going to be, and that's what's going to be your call sign.
Should have been hickey.
So he said he went back and he talked to his peers. He says, listen, Gunny Sergeant Willett said this. Hickey ain't going to cut it because there's nothing warrior about it. Road rash, that's a coward's way out. It's got to be blood clot. And so that's how he ended up with blood clots. And then fast forward, he's now an ensign, and he's walking with Sean Wilson, I believe it was, down the street because they're at aviation pre-flight training to be pilots and NFOs. And he said, I seen them walking down the street. I mean, who couldn't see blood clot coming? So I'm running the platoon running double time. So I shouted, I look to the right, and what do I see? And of course, the platoon repeats whatever I say. Ensign blood clot looking at me. Good morning, sir. Morning, sir. Hoorah. And so when I talked to him years later, he says he just felt 10 foot tall. And by the way, he's just a munchkin, probably 5'4", maybe 5'5". But what an awesome guy. I just got to see him again during the retirement speech that I gave for Dixie on the line here, also known as Lieutenant Commander Chris Butler. But
well,
guy.
I just want to say for all the people that are watching this on our 20-year anniversary, you all can go screw yourself for voting me number 43. All right, I'm going to hold that in my heart for the rest of my life.
Hey, you don't need to take that as anything other than
I did my job.
You did your job, man. You honestly, and I say this in all sincerity, you made it fun for a good number of people that were in that class. And I know you brought my personality out because I came in thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to be the straightest ace I could ever be. And as soon as you and I bonded, it was like, we got 13 weeks.
Let's do
it. Why be miserable? Let's have as much fun as we can and learn as much as we can.
If you want to talk about miserable, be on the bubble for 13 weeks. That was miserable.
No, you did not do. Now you need to say it because there's a lot of respect that goes to be on the bubble for that long. Yeah. The bubble, for those not familiar, you're only allowed to ever have 2 failures accumulated at OCS. Now here's the thing: when you fail that first exam or test, whatever it may be, if you fail the retest, you automatically go back 2 weeks in training. If you pass the retest, the next time you have a failure, even though it's the first time you took the test, you automatically go back 2 weeks before you do the retest. So you can only have 1 failure and graduate with your class. Have a second failure. It could be the first test, and then the second one be the last test. You automatically go back 2 weeks in training because you're an idiot. And it just was not that important to you. Yeah. And so Admiral Stockdale, he wrote about it, and I had the privilege of talking to him one time, and he gave great credit to the hedgehog. And he says they're not the fastest, the most beautiful. He says, but they're determined, and they're going to accomplish what's important. And he says, I'd rather have a unit full of hedgehogs that may not be the most gifted academically or physically, but have the perseverance to achieve the goal. And that's what's important.
That's me. I'm a hedgehog. Oh, man. Now that nickname's going to stick with me forever. All right, fellas, listen, I'm not going to keep you on here long, but happy anniversary. Butler, I'm so glad that this just was on a spare-of-the-moment thing that I decided to reach out to you. And I've only been talking to you now through Facebook for a couple of weeks. I can't thank you enough. I love you, man, and for all that you did for me. You set things in motion for me to go on and achieve. Not that I'm any great, I've never been the greatest SEAL. I was not the greatest investigator, but what I learned there helped propel me through the FBI Academy. I never made below, I think I made an 88. The rest of my grades were 95 and above. And I've never failed a test since then. And I've always walked in confidence where I had a real problem, which was in learning. And so, you made a lot of things possible just simply because your understanding of teamwork. And a lot of people, would rather have just slept. But we were up at 2 a.m. studying. And, I know John knows this. That is what it's all about. That is the warrior spirit. That is the spirit of an American. That's the same spirit that our founding fathers had, and that's what John was teaching, and you brought it to – it was just an amazing experience. And to John, I just want to tell you, I've said this 100 times, and I'll say it until the day that I die. I became a man in OCS. I was
Amen.
I was a young guy who had a lot of aspirations, but when I went to OCS, I became a man, and I owe that to John Crouch.
I second that.
I just have an 8-second comment to make.
No way.
I said it the night
no, there's no way you're going to have 8 seconds.
So you can tell me when I start to say it, but it was always given the night before commissioning at High Moms. And so for all you listeners out there, in the Marine Corps, we create leaders the way God creates diamonds. We take good quality raw products and put them under immense pressure, testing the fragility of their flaws. Those that crumble were never worthy of the rewards. Those that survive are priceless. And tonight, when I look out in the audience, I see the Navy's newest minted diamonds. the future of the United States Navy. I was their drill instructor, and I'm damn proud of them. Hoorah! I love y'all.
And diamonds have
Amen.
beards now, evidently.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm retired. Well, I'll be officially retired in 4 days. So.
All right. Well, God bless you guys.
Thanks
and
for
Aaron
having me on, man. I can't wait to get up to New York and actually see you in person. It's been too damn long, dude. Especially for two guys that got along so good for 13 weeks.
Well, I'm going to have Aaron Zielinski on here. We've talked so much about this guy. We need to have him on here. So, Aaron, I'm going to have to figure out how to do Skype so we can have you on. And Sean and anybody else. I think Annie was on here a minute ago. She was in the class that we actually were Canada officers in. And I love all you guys, and thank you for all the service. Thank you for our freedom. And John, again, America can't thank you enough for what you've done.
Yep, that's why he was my guest speaker, Gillen.
Yeah,
I wanted to give him that honor, and it was all mine, truly.
It's all about you, Butler.
I hear you. Always has been. Well, thanks for having me on.
Yut. All right, fellas. Thank you very much. God bless you.
God bless you, man.
Out. Woo, man, there you go. See, the spare of the moment shows. I didn't even know what I was going to talk about tonight before I came on. I was all transgender everything. I just want to say this before I go to the truth zone. Hold on one second here. I think I got water in here. I get a little choked up. I get verklempt. I'm not even going to entertain Twitter and the nonsense that's going on there with all these people with their language and stuff. It's just it's unbelievable how when this whole conversation's going on, you got these idiots on Twitter. That's why I just stopped paying attention to it, and I was looking at what you guys were writing on Facebook. The American citizenry has completely forgot how to associate with each other and how to have conversations, and they don't millennials and different people out there. I know Eleanor is mad because I've been hounding on the millennials, but look, here's the reality: millennials are in a bad place because they're being raised and indoctrinated from the time they're children. If they're not at school being indoctrinated, they're indoctrinated through television. They're indoctrinated through the education system. They're indoctrinated in society through Hollywood, through music, all these different things where the communist ideology has worked its way into all these different sectors of our private and public lives. And the millennials have a hard road ahead of them. I would just say this: if you're watching this show, and I don't care if you're an adult or you're a millennial, I know millennials are adults, I didn't mean it that way, but you have to realize what you just listened to there, and all these people that got this transgender nonsense in their brain that it's okay. You see, that's the reality of what you're going to face when you're in there. And there's no room for heightened suicide rates. There's no room for people that don't have an identity. The overweight girl that John Crouch was talking about that showed up there unaware that there was going to be physical fitness in there, she had a misconception of the reality of what serving in the military was all about. You have to be able to meet the standards. You can't just accept people that are heavy if they can't work out and do the runs. And the same thing if people have psychological issues. I know there are tons of men who've gone through military training and BUDS and everything else, especially in BUDS, and they have a wife or girlfriend they're having a terrible time with, and instead of just saying, hey, we'll deal with it when we get out, it becomes a psychological issue. They end up failing, and we've had guys kill themselves. We've had people ruin their entire careers because they have a psychological issue going on when they're in training. And this is just people that are going through bad marriages or bad relationships. So you can imagine if somebody shows up to the table with an issue going on upstairs where they don't even know what gender they are. There is going to be a problem when they are put under the stress level that it is palatable, the stress that you feel when you're going through military training. You literally can feel the weight as though I give you some kind of a crate filled with bricks and I put it on your back. The weight is that heavy because the career path that you've chosen could be taken away from you in an instant. So people that show up that have predisposed issues, psychological issues, health issues, when the stress level is turned up that high, they pop like a dog tick, and it's not something that needs to be experienced by other people in and around that community, because we're building warriors. We're not building a playground where people can feel happy and fun. We're building a cohesive and streamlined force to kill. And that's all it is. So on this 20-year anniversary, 20 years ago, guys, we were the stress was heavy. One, I can't say the guy's name. I think he might still be in the teams, but he was there for an entire week and didn't take he didn't go to the bathroom. He didn't go poop once for a week. That's how stressed he was. His gut was out. He looked like one Ethiopian kid. His gut was out to here, hard as a rock, because he was stressed. And I think he cried like a baby when he finally went to the bathroom. I know it's gross, but that's the truth. That's what stress does to you. That's what stress and fear will do to you. So happy anniversary to all the warriors, and let's go to the truth zone. And again, 43. Interesting. I never knew that's what it was all about. You can tell I'm distraught by this. Okay, let's go. All right. Well, hopefully people got a lot out of that. I didn't even mean for that to occur like that rapidly. But the reality is that time will fly, folks. Time will fly, and you will not even 20 years is nothing. It's absolutely nothing. But what's incredible about it is the things that you learn in experiences like this, 20 years later, those experiences are rock solid. Rock solid. And the lessons that I learned from Chris Butler, from John Crouch, from Aaron Zielinski, all the other people there, Sean Wilson, all these people, the lessons that I learned in that time are so ingrained inside me that it forever changed the person that I was and am. Still to this day, when I go through stressful situations, I reflect back on that time and I push forward, as do other people. But it's important for those people to realize if you've not been through this type of training, if you haven't experienced this type of thing, take heed from what we tell you and from the experiences that we've had. Fear will get inside of you. Now, you may not be in the military. You may be having a hard time at work. You may be stressed out because of school. You may be 40-something years old and not know where you're going. Fear can cripple a person. Fear can paralyze you and make you sick and put you in the hospital. Fear can make you into the person that you never thought that you would be, but you can overcome that fear. And this is how you do it. You take a deep breath and you just keep moving forward. It's really that simple. Fear is a bigger illusion than it is an actual palatable thing. Fear makes you think that you're not capable of doing something, even when you are. So 20 years later, after we all went through this experience and we were able to challenge ourselves and then go on and challenge ourselves further in other ways, know this, folks. Fear does not have to paralyze you. And in fact, you can control fear. You just have to work with it. You have to challenge it. You have to wait for those times to come, and then you have to consciously move forward. Because if you don't, you may find yourself in a situation, a very scary situation, where you don't have the ability to push forward because you've never prepared your mind. Make that decision now. Prepare yourself. Accept the fear and push forward. This show is all about the we, not the me. And I'm Jonathan Gillum. Old Rico, the pooper, he's down there. God bless Class 0297, John Crouch, Chris Butler, Aaron Zielinski, Sean Wilson, and everybody else that served this country. I salute every single one of you, and I'll see you maybe tomorrow, maybe Monday on The Experts. The truth has arrived.